Sleep well? Good, good. I'm here to introduce one of our participants in the Leadership Exchange Ambassador Program for 2012. And this is Aleksandra Borovic from Mensa Serbia. And she will talk on the volunteer reward system and how to win. So, okay, the program is all yours, Aleksandra.
Thank you. Hi everybody, I'm very happy to be here. This is not my first American annual gathering. I've been to the diamond anniversary 6 years ago, but I'm really happy to be here today and to share with you the experiences that we have from Mensa Serbia. For Mensa Serbia, first of all, I would maybe have to explain what is Serbia and where is it on the world map. However, I think this man, Novak Djokovic, our famous tennis player, did this part of the presentation for me, so I'll skip it for now. I hope that you've all heard about Serbia, at least through him. Now, Mensa Serbia. In the beginning, in 1989, it was Mensa Yugoslavia. In fact, that was a big country, which was so Mensa was first founded in Yugoslavia in 1989. Then came the 90s, and with the destruction of Yugoslavia, Mensa stopped working, of course. And then it was again founded in 1998. It was still named Yugoslavia, but the country got much smaller. And then the country keep on changing the name. So did the Mensa Serbia and Montenegro for a while between 2004 and 2007. And then finally in 2007 we became Mensa Serbia. So our country has a population of about 7.5 million people. And and for such a small country, we are proud, we can say we have quite a number of Mensa members. In 2005, we reached the number of 1,000 members, and ever since then, we are between 1,000 and 1,300 members per year. As you can see with the signs, we have local Mensas, local organizations, local secretaries in bigger cities, which are usually the university centers. And speaking about the members, speaking about the activities, most of the activities that are worth mentioning are in connection with the Gifted Members Department. That department was created by the founder of Mensa Serbia, Dr. Borovic. Some of you may have heard about him. He is presently the chair of the Gifted Children Committee of Mensa International. And so he created also his Gifted Members Department in Mensa Serbia, and their activities and projects attracted to the attention of the government of Serbia and also of the state institution and educational institution. About 5 years ago, the same person, Dr. Borovic, created the program called NTC program. First, it was Nikola Tesla Center program because the Gifted Members Department called the name of Nikola Tesla. However, now it was translated into Network Teaching Children program, which is now implemented also by Mensa International. And this program was designed for the early detection of giftedness among children. And in Serbia, it started the implementation with preschool children, how to try to help them develop their biological potential through a specific program, how to work with them, and also for the children at the primary school, in the first 4 years of primary school, by changing the way they are learning into the learning through the games. So this is more appropriate for children, and so they are accepting it very well. So this program is not only applied in Serbia, it was also implemented in several countries, I think between 14 and 20, I'm not quite sure. But also it is, in some countries it is implemented through national Mensas, and in other countries through some educational institutions. And also from this year, UNICEF started supporting this program, so it is considered to be one of the UNICEF programs for the gifted children. Then one of the activities of Mensa Serbia that you may have heard of is also the Mensa photo competition. It started like the first ever Mensa international program, which could include all Mensas, but it was invented by our actual president of Mensa Serbia, or the chair of Mensa Serbia. His name is Uroš Petrovic, and he's a very talented photographer, but amateur. He's not a professional, and he had his photo seek, and he proposed a competition which could go international. So I think about 20 national Mensas now are taking part every year in Mensa International Photo Cup. It was known under the name Convergency. And then there are activities which are mostly oriented toward our members. These are the gatherings, and we have quite a number of gatherings, not only one annual gathering, which is obligatory, I would say, but we have in all our local Mensas some kind of gathering, especially over the summer, which is offered to all the members of Mensa Serbia. And also these gatherings are getting international because we have a very strong cooperation with the Mensas in the region. So Mensa Croatia, Slovenia, Mensa in Macedonia, Bosnia, and Bulgaria, and Hungary. So we exchange visits to each other gatherings. Next one, please. Now, members. In Serbia, the situation is quite different from the one you have here in the States. We have quite a number, or the great majority of members who are in their early 20s. And this is very good, and on the other hand, it makes a kind of problem. Why? All of them join Mensa, or most of them join Mensa Serbia because of the poor economic and employment situation in our country. So they expect to find some kind of help for their professional development, for their career, for their life through Mensa. And they don't really understand what does it mean an organization which is built on the volunteer work. And also they have an approach which is different from the one that would be appropriate, which is the appropriate one. What can I do for Mensa? Rather than what the majority of our members have is what Mensa can do for me. So we are fighting with that as a problem. Next, please. So most of the young members, or the new members, have their expectations, of course. And of course, most of these expectations are wrong. The way we are fighting with it is that we are providing the presentations of Mensa as an organization of our activities at the beginning of their membership. However, it is very hard to fight the prejudices, and so it is only when new members enter really into the organization that they realize the reality. So most of them get a bit disappointed. And there are some of them who have bright new ideas, and it is new ideas because with every generation we have generally the, not same but similar ideas on how things can be done or how things should be organized better. But one problem is that that's the part of the idea which does not include, okay, let me do it better, or follow me, let's try to do it better. People don't have an idea that there is no way you can impose any kind of work to existing Mensa members. And of course, there's no way you can punish or blame those volunteers who take over some tasks and then they don't have the energy, the time, or anything else that's needed to fulfill the tasks. So, as I mentioned, many of these new members choose to be critical and not to really take some work on it. Next, please. So it was in 2005 when it was the most flourishing period of Mensa Serbia and Montenegro at the time. And we were thinking how to motivate volunteers and how to reward those who put their energy and time into the well-being of the organization. When I say we were thinking, I'm talking about the executive committee of Mensa Serbia, and it is not the managing committee, the board. It was the body that was that consisted of the local secretaries and all these most active volunteers who are having certain duties in Mensa. So I would say very practical people. We were trying to invent a system how to motivate more members to take part. And so we came to the solution, the ViN system. Why it is called ViN? It's in the acronym from the Serbian words vrednovanje I nagrađivanje, which is assessing and rewarding system. So it was created by my colleague from the executive board, Mr. Predrag Đukić, and myself, and we had a great support of the above-mentioned Mr. Ranko Rajović from the board of Mensa Serbia. Okay, so we thought there should be some percentage of the budget of Mensa Serbia and Montenegro that could be devoted to rewarding volunteers. I put here 10%. At the time, it was we said 10%. It is not a great amount. Our budget was about, let's say, 20,000 euros on that year. So 2,000 euros was approximately the value for this system. The idea was to make the list of all the work that is done in Mensa, all the activities, all the mandatory activities, all the work that the board and the other volunteers are doing. And then to create the system, how to reward them, my colleague Predrag made the theoretical part of this system, and he proposed some solution for borderline cases. And myself, I did the practical distribution of points per activity. Next. We divided all Mensa work, or all activities done in Mensa by the volunteers, in 4 groups. First group would be the management, meaning that the board, as well the local secretaries, the election board, we have also the supervisory board, the ombudsman, and so on, should have some kind of points for their activity. Then there were, I call it usually mandatory activities that were imposed by the Constitution, which is, of course, organizing IQ testing, reviewing the results, then also organizing the annual meeting of the Mensa Assembly. Then there were production of Mensa magazine, and in this group also falls the database administration, the maintenance of the server, of the website, of mailing lists, and so on. Then the events. At the time we had approximately 10 to 12 general events lasting from 1 day to 1 week. Those were the events organized either by local secretaries and their teams, or even by some SIGs, but if the event is oriented toward all the members of Mensa, then it was considered to be a general event, although organized by the SIG. There were, of course, weekend gatherings, sport tournaments, and also the photo cup falls under it because it was for all the members. And then the other smaller or minor activities, which were organization of lectures out of the general gatherings, then providing interview to the media, then site hosting, secretarial duties at Mensa Serbia Montenegro office, and so on. When we made the list of all this work and all these activities, we assigned certain number of points per each activity. For those activities, or for the work done during all the year, we gave a certain number of points. For example, psychologists got a certain number of points for each 100 tests reviewed, or the editor-in-chief for the Mensa magazine was assigned certain number of points per issue. And then there were group activities, such as events, which were organized by the team. Then the team leader would have the duty to distribute among his team members the number of points which were assigned to that event. So for example, if an event got 50 points, the main organizer would have 20, and then he would distribute the other part of points to his team members, because the organizer is the only one who knows how much work has each volunteer invested in that event. Then who would track the points is the secretary of Mensa Serbia and Montenegro office, and the control would be done by what we called ViN team, which is me and my colleague Pedro, the authors of the system, and then the representative of the Mensa Serbia and Montenegro board, which was Mr. Ranko Radić. Now we decided at that time about the value of each point. At the time we said, okay, we can devote approximately 2,000 euros for this program, and it meant that each point would be one value, had the value of €1. But the value should not be disclosed to the members because it could change. For example, if we had less income during that year, we can change the value of the point, or even if there were more activities, for example, than it was planned, then we have to just make the value go less than €1. Otherwise, we wouldn't have enough money to do what we planned to do. We also thought that there might be some unexpected activities because, of course, with new members, new ideas, there might be somebody who proposed an activity who turns out to be interesting to the members, and it would be approved by the board, and then we should have a reserve points for that sort of activity, and we put like 70 points for the reserve. Right? Then, of course, we thought of the possibility that certain activity could fail to be organized for any reason. Some gathering, for example, if the local secretary cannot do it, or for weather conditions, or whatever reason could prevent us from organizing one of these activities. We said, okay, we can reallocate the number of points which was planned for that activity to another activity. And then what to do with the collected points? The idea was, I'm repeating that most of our members are very young, and students mostly, so they have difficulties to put aside the money to go for gatherings, to pay for the accommodation, for meals, and so on. So we thought, okay, if a volunteer got, for example, 15 points, it is approximately the value of €15, and at one of our gatherings, the accommodation would cost for 2 nights, for example, €15. That sounds very, very small as a price, but we usually choose private or student dormitories or private rooms or houses to rent for our gatherings, because we cannot impose expensive places for our members. Nobody would come. So for the volunteer who gets his, for example, points, he can exchange it on the next year to have an accommodation at the gathering for free, covered by Mensa Serbia and Montenegro. Or else, yes, this is the example that I just gave. Or else a person can collect the points and get a kind of certificate at the end of the year and say, okay, I don't want to use my points for material value, I just want to keep it to show that I'm a volunteer who invests himself into Mensa, and just to have a kind of a certificate. What can it be used for? I'll tell you later. Now, what we thought could be useful with this system. First of all, reward and motivate the volunteer to take part in the activities. Then, to help these volunteers attend the gatherings. And so, after that, to motivate them to renew the membership fee, because if their price could be used the next year, then next year they will probably renew the membership. And what happened with our system? First, we proposed the system, and told the whole story in front of the members at the annual gathering of Mensa Serbia and Montenegro Assembly. And it was warmly welcomed by, not only by the board, but all the present members. Everybody was happy with the idea, and so we got the approval to start the implementation of the system. But of course, here comes the problems. The first problem that happened was that some of the volunteers thought that their work has much more value than the work of another volunteer. For example, our psychologist thought she's doing professional work, and the number of points awarded to that work is not enough for the work she's doing. Then there were these team leaders who got the points for their activity, but they didn't want or didn't have time to do the distribution of the points to their team members. Or maybe they didn't like the system, I don't know what was the reason, but they failed to give the information to the secretary and the ViN team about the points for their volunteers, for their team members. And in total, it brought us a lot of headache and a lot of quarrel. And it was a very bad experience for us, because we thought we gave a good idea to improve the things, and then the reaction was good, but the final result was quite bad. Next. So my personal opinion was that by implementing this system, we could encourage the volunteers to take part in the activities. By encouraging more people to take part, we could get more activities, and by that we could get, of course, more members. So that was the idea originally. And also I say now what can be done also for those who want to apply for certain positions in Mensa Serbia and Montenegro. They can put in their nomination the number of points that they've collected on the previous years. So it could be also one of the important information for the voters to know how much work somebody has invested in Mensa in order to decide for whom to vote. Okay, and then what were the weak points or drawbacks? So the subjectivity of team leaders. There could be people who thought that the team leader who is assigning points to the team members is not correct, and they were complaining about that. Then, of course, arguing among the volunteers about the problems. It was very interesting because they fight for the points as if there were such a big value. I couldn't explain you. More value than the money is. It was very interesting. And then ViN team had not enough energy to fight with all these problems that occurred, and we failed. Our program failed finally. So after a short while, we just stopped implementing it. Now, this year or last year, we were thinking again of trying to reintroduce this system. And that gave me the idea to come here and to tell you about the ViN system and to ask you for your opinion about what do you think of what would be the advantages of such a system, the problems or the bad things, or what could have been done maybe better. We could organize kind of brainstorming to find better solution, to recreate the whole thing and to maybe implement it. We can do the pilot project implementing in Mensa Serbia, and if it works well, we can propose the system to other smaller national Mensas, or even to those big national Mensas who have local parts, so it can be practically applied into the local Mensas of big national Mensas. So, do you have some kind of opinion on our ViN system? Yes, please.
I think that when I first read about this, I thought it is such a good idea to reward volunteers. But the thing is that, as you say, people are, they can't see the value of one person's work against their own work, and there will always be that that kind of a problem. It might be, the way you might improve that is to just reward people with the certificates or reward them with a free registration, and just have that done by maybe 2 or 3 people who are chosen each year to do that. So you kind of move that kind of judgment around, so that this year it's these 2 or 3 people, next year it's these other 2 or 3 people, and they're the ones who make the decisions. No questions, no, well, I don't know if that would work either.
Democracy is a very funny thing.
Basically, I think, you know, volunteers fall into a couple different categories. There are volunteers who will do anything, anywhere. And then there are some who, if it doesn't impinge on their life where they have to work for a living and earn money, they'll do things as long as you can fit it into that schedule. And then there are others that they just want to sit there. They don't want to do anything. But you can draw them in sometimes. Sometimes you can, if it's an interesting enough activity or event, you might be able to draw them in. So it's a difficult thing to try to come up with a program. But I think if you had a little judgment panel, 2 or 3 people every year who would kind of award people with either a certificate, a gift card. When I was working in the real world, we would have volunteers who helped us put on a large event. And so we had enough money so that we could give them a $10, each one of them a $10 gift card to a bookstore. So, you know.
You want to say no matter what kind of, or what the amount of work was, the equal value of the gift card?
Yeah, because it would be too difficult to decide, this person gets a $5 card, this person gets a $10 card. Just the fact that they were there, the fact that I saw most of them do the things that I wanted them to do, we gave them a gift card.
You turn it more into a binary system. I mean, and then people, they know from each other, well, you're a volunteer like me, so I get, for example, standard a free membership, for example, something like that.
Yeah.
And then otherwise, if you put like a value on it, then people will compare and will always feel undervalued. So,
I think you are the next.
One of the things that I would be inclined to try, so it relies heavily on the honesty of the people involved, and probably needs some sort of cross-checking, would be to have the volunteers self-report how many hours they put in on each activity, either just a little time card-like thing, or even something online where you sign in and say, I worked 6 hours on this, or I worked 4 hours.
Kind of self-assessment.
Pardon?
Kind of a self-assessment system.
Yeah, self-assessment, and then maybe at the end of the year, you total up the total number of hours that were put in on everything, and if you have some sort of gifts to give beyond a certificate, just a little certificate saying thank you for your hours type of thing, then divide it up based on that.
Okay.
It might work. I don't know.
No, who's next? I think you.
I think that, I don't know where, in which direction I should speak, but I think that when money is involved, then there are always problems. So certain people want to to abuse the system, and especially in countries where people are usually live on a lower standard, like Serbia and Hungary too. So what I would think is that you should use other rewards than money. Like I will talk about this in my own presentation, but some members could offer services they normally do in their lives, so they could offer them for free. So it's like, it has a financial value, but it's still not money.
So exchange of services among the members, something like that.
I was thinking along the same lines. In the Netherlands, you have like certain communities where they have the Let's system, which is like a local currency for people. Basically, I help you build a shed, and you bake an apple pie for me. And the thing is that people can exchange these activities or these products without knowing each other in advance. And so it's also good for community building. Of course, being not such a large Mensa, I don't know if that's if you need that addition to it, because people will probably already know each other.
No.
Okay, so then it might be
10% of people who are moving around and attending meetings, they know each other, and while the others are just anonymous.
Well, then it could really give an added value.
So
Then you would be like the central bank.
Central bank of potential services that could be offered to each
Local
other.
currency.
Okay. Okay, sir.
I saw several issues here. One, of course, is that you are an entire country, you're not just a little city. I'm used to working in my own local group where most of the active people know each other. Your situation, you're looking at team leaders in Belgrade who might or might not know people in another city. So operating on the people you know who are doing the work is difficult for you, I understand that. So evaluating things in terms of number of hours on an online system may be your best solution. That way you're not, and yes, you're depending on self-reporting, but you're not depending upon someone watching you.
Yes, I understand.
The other thing that, and these two people already spoke to it really, I'm a little concerned about putting financial rewards out there, and this may be very culturally dependent. Some cultures, I visited a country that they did not understand the notion of volunteerism. I mean, if you're not doing it for money, why are you doing it at all?
Well, that's one of the problems in our country. It is quite new. I told to somebody last night, the idea of volunteerism is very new in Serbia, and it was introduced on the general level of the society only last year, I think. Except for the organization for very young people, where it existed even earlier. But for the adults, it was only last year that it was organized for helping elderly people who are sick and don't have their children or family who can help them. And we have now the organization who have the volunteers helping these people.
So what I would suggest is some sort of prestige points system, where the people who have really done a great deal of work get the picture on the website. This person has really done a great deal of work for us. Maybe not in a management position, maybe not be the head of the organization, but they've been out there and they've been doing and doing and doing, and they get prestige points for that.
Yeah, that was one of the idea. Somebody could use the material value, and somebody could just decide to have the certificate or that, as you said, prestige points just for his CV or something like that.
This person is a nice person, and this person is a very, very nice person.
It's not. It's just somebody who can afford working for others because his or her life is stable and financial situation is stable, while we have more of those who can't even feed their families and they cannot afford working for others. That's the problem. Or their spouses or children complain for them losing the time with Mensa instead of trying to be with their families and to work for their families. This is the problem that we are fighting for.
And I was going to listen. Oh, sorry.
You lady. Yeah.
A very simple system at our gathering, we have raffle tickets, and for every person that works a 2-hour shift, the raffle ticket goes in, and then at the wrap-up meeting, we give away a free registration for next year's gathering. Very, very simple, but good. And it does, I mean, if you work more shifts, you get more tickets. And this year we had the brilliant idea, I don't know why it never came to us till now. We have Roper School and several other gifted schools in our area. And in the springtime, they do a raffle, a silent auction for charity for their schools. And at first we thought about a Mensa membership, but you know, you don't know if the winner's qualified or not. So we said, a free registration to our annual gathering. And so we gave them a registration, which didn't really cost us that much. And publicity about us as a group went out to the entire network of all the parents who have children in a gifted school.
Thank you, that's very good.
And it cost us next to nothing.
One idea on what she said was a very good idea, I think. But one idea for a more national type thing where you have multiple events, multiple programs, and sort of playing on the prestige idea, you might consider possibility of getting like little pins saying, I put in 100 hours or I put in 250 hours for Mensa. And if you get in Mensa, then you know, they've earned the right to wear this, and either just to Mensa events or they can wear it anywhere, and might get questions, people asking them about Mensa.
Yeah, that's
particularly.
Well, actually, what you see with these badges is that I think, Elisa, I don't know if you brought yours. I think you've got your reward system right there.
Yeah.
And one thing I would like to add concerning the financial incentive is that even with that local currency that I mentioned before, the Dutch tax office was really interested about that, and I think they even went on to try and tax these people. So if you're giving money to these volunteers, then I don't know how it is in Serbia, but I think...
It's not the money, it's, for example, he comes to this gathering and he doesn't have to pay for the hotel, but Mensa Serbia pays for it. That's the idea.
Of course, but behind that is now in the original lineup system, you're basically paying it for them, so you're giving some kind of financial incentive. And in the Netherlands, I think the tax office would say, well, let's see about that.
Your office is much more serious than ours.
Yeah, but I mean, you're trying to get into the EU. This probably might be getting aligned more towards the European incentive.
It's going to be a long walk to the EU.
Yes. Well, you're very
sir,
welcome.
in the last row. Yes.
You identified the problem of psychologists and other more specialized types of people and their perception of their time as being not worth the same as an hour of time from someone who is doing something anybody could do. I've been in a leadership role in a different type of organization, and one of the things that we did similar to this was have color-coded points, if you will, so that people could perceive that their particular one is of a greater value than others. If you're a psychologist, you get green points, and if you have a management role, you get blue points, and if you're just a common shovel type person, you get yellow points, and so on. Whether there's any actual intrinsic difference in the value of those is up to the management level people, but it assuages the egos of people who feel that their contribution is of a different value than the others, and then you don't have to have everybody be on the same level, use the same pool of points.
Yes, thank you. That's very interesting.
I think your original idea is very, very sound and great, because the organisation is run on volunteers, and it's really great to be able to recognise that certain people, put 150% of what they've got into the organisation, while other people just dabble here and there if they do anything at all. So I really like the idea of having a colour scheme of some way where everything's down to the ground. But at least, someone gets acknowledged that you've done something more than a volunteer that just volunteered for 1 hour at the AG all year, and someone else has put in 1,000 hours into Mensa. You just need some way of identifying that and recognising it.
Thank you.
A quick one, prestige and thank you. The boutique carries very attractive name badges, and for your local group officers who do major contributions, they're really, they're very official, they're very attractive looking, they're gold, they have the Mensa logo. Buy your officers name badges so they can be. And the boutique will make them for you, and I believe they're $9, including shipping, I think, is it? They're not, but they're very handsome.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's true.
I think that cultural differences play a role here because I don't know about Serbia, but in Hungary, like pins and color-coded points will not possess any value to members whatsoever because our culture is more like financially oriented than perhaps the
We
US
have
or
a kind of merged the two ideas into one or something like that. We can work on it. Yes, sir.
Aleksandra, I think your original plan was excellent. It would have worked for me personally. I'm a little concerned, though, with the logical train that's being followed. The precise reason for failure wasn't clear to me from what you presented. And combined with that, I wonder, and this is a question, whether one of the challenges that you faced was based on what I understood from your presentation, that essentially you deployed a system with compensation upon people who were not part of the group who designed the system in the first place. And therefore, to use the American colloquialism, they had no buy-in with what the compensation was. Therefore, they didn't value it. There are approaches to building systems like what you're dealing with that do not require the participation of 100% of the participants at the beginning, but only a fraction of them. And the reason why that you need some, of course, is to include their value system into what ultimately you're going to give them. If they didn't value, for example, what you were awarding them, the particular way the points were translated into things that they received, perhaps they simply didn't see value in what you were giving them, right?
You want to, if I understood properly, you think that the volunteers did not know what will they get through with these points?
It's not that they didn't know, it's that they didn't care.
They didn't care.
They didn't value it. And therefore, it didn't motivate them. So this leads to the question, why are you compensating? Is it a form of motivation? Is it a form of recognition? Those are not the same. So this is the issue of the logical train of what you're trying to accomplish and how.
I think.
I'm not quite sure whether I understood properly what you want to say.
Sorry, it's actually adding on to what Roger was saying, that sorry, just changes. If you're going to design a reward system, it will be good if you can get, let's say, a focus group of some of the volunteers and say, roughly, this is what our budget is every year. How can we design what do you think we can do in designing a reward system for volunteers? And get their ideas, their feedback, what would they value, pins, certificates, like if you collect a certain number of certificates, you let's say the annual subscription to the Mensa is free, something like that. So it's not that you give them money, but they save money, right? So maybe those kind of things, like having a focus group, find out what do they want, right? Rather than imposing on them, ask them. But you have to make it clear that you are on a budget. You have a limited budget, right? So that might work.
Is that what you
Close enough.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
But it's quite contrary to the point that you made, that they were not disinterested. They were too interested in the points. That's why it failed. That's at least your
Yes, they were too
assumption.
interested. They understood that they could get something, which is not that big of a value. For example, we didn't want to disclose the value of a point because if you say to somebody you work for 5 points, that's one thing, but if you work for €5 and you spend your 10 hours or something, it's more of humiliating than really rewarding. That's why we didn't want to disclose the value but we said that it could be used for some kind of activities that they will get for free on the next calendar year. So they were fighting to get more points. They were interested, but the team leaders who were organizing gatherings, they were not accurate to do the distribution of points. And my personal impression was that they did not want to put additional effort and probably create bad feelings among the team members by distributing, okay, Esther has 3 points, you have 5, I have 15, I don't know. Maybe that was the cause why they did not want to do that part of the job, while we were unable. For example, if I organize an event, I know how much points everybody deserves. But for another gathering which was not organized by me, how can I know? That's why the team leader was asked to do that. And after all, we could not get the response from the team leaders, and that was one of the reasons why we failed. And also, we had these volunteers arguing, my work is worth more points, so we adjusted a little bit. Then came another volunteer saying, but my work is also, I don't know why, or more worthy than the other. So with so much complaints and discussions, we could have spent the eternity to resolve all the problems, and we ended up with not having enough time and enough energy to fight it with all this. That was the reason why the program failed. We decided that it's then better to give up than to go on all the year quarreling, and at the end of it, I mean, it would not make Mensa a better place. It would be just worse.
Roger made an important point that I'd like to underline, and that's the difference between recognition and motivation. You were trying to motivate, you were using financial technique to do the motivation. The notion of prestige points or raffle tickets are other ways of doing that. Where with a raffle ticket, all you're doing is adjusting your chances of gaining something. But still, the difference between motivation and recognition, I think is something that you need to include in your system. Roger, could you raise the possibility that there are ways of getting buy-in from a group of people for something like this, even if not all of them are involved? Could you tell us more about that, please?
You're very kind, thanks. I think that other folks have identified this very clearly, that there are focus group techniques that are standard in business development and organizational development that are specific to these problems.
Sorry, I was listening off my train of thought for a moment. Each individual volunteer you have, to the point of buy-in, each individual volunteer has to ask the question of himself, am I doing this for myself, or am I doing this for the organization? And it's not binary, because there's a scale there. I'm doing it 10% for myself and 90% for the organization, what have you. I think they need to see that they're working toward a goal. You say your program failed. I would suggest that if you defined success, not just for the members, but for yourselves, first define success. This is what it takes to reach our goal. Now, here's your points. Give everybody their points. Now, your points are worthless unless we reach our goal. When we reach our goal, this is what your points are worth. Then you've got a means of buy-in that people are working for the organization, not just for themselves.
I see. Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Let me keep bringing a different wrinkle that I think is important to Mensa. The idea of public praise and public recognition, which some people would find very welcome, but at least in American Mensa, we have twice as many introverts as the normal population, and you have to feel it out carefully, because what would be rewarding to some people would be excruciatingly painful to others, and it would stop them from volunteering in the future. So that public praise, you have to be very careful with Mensa volunteers and know which ones will welcome it and which ones won't.
I understand the situation, however, we don't have those introverts among the volunteers. Mostly the volunteers are among the other group. So for the moment we don't have this kind of problem, but thank you.
did the original website, did you have like a public display of
Yes,
who owned
yes,
how
on our
many points?
website we have the list of all the, I can show you. I have it on another file. I didn't think it would be very interesting for you, but I can show you.
Because you could like add the status to it, like with so many points you get a silver status or a gold volunteer status.
Something like that. Maybe it should
Can
be
we
there.
zoom in a bit?
Yes, please.
Now, how do I zoom in?
That's why
Bottom,
it's
bottom, can you see the scale? Bottom right,
Yeah.
that scale, 100%. Just move that little thing.
Oh.
Wrong way.
No, we,
Am I going the wrong way?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Go to the plus.
Excel is
This is all better.
okay, here I missed some numbers. This is 10 and this is, but never mind, but that's the general idea.
That's a lot of work.
Did you also keep track of, how many points each of the candidates?
I don't have it here
Volunteers.
because it was done on that year, 2005, so it was lost.
I don't have to see it, it's just a question if that was displayed publicly, if people could see,
oh.
oh, she has 50 points and I have only 3,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't like
well,
her.
I
so-
think the idea was to tell each volunteer that for this work you've been awarded based on this table, that and that number of points. It was very, quite precisely defined for, as you can see, for example, this for lab master, main master, for these were the points per year. For the psychologist, 5 points for each 100 tests. She knows how many tests she did, and so she knows how many points she will get. Then organization of testing. We had, on that year, we had kind of 4 big testings, about 100 and plus candidates, and we have quite a number of smaller testings. So each testing, or each local secretary who organizes it, gets that number of points for the testing organization. Then for board, for example, we had 300 points, and then the board itself should decide how many points will each of them get. We did not want to get into it because we, as a ViN team, we did not really know how much time they invest, each of them. Yes, please.
How was the rating done?
Okay, well, I did it because being a volunteer for several years, I've been into the organization of almost each activity. So, and also I was helping for the general events, as I started myself one event in Belgrade, and everybody learned that I'm capable to do the organization, so they were calling me to help in other cities. So I was doing on remote, of course. I was not going there to do the organization, I was helping them. So I knew what are they doing, how they are doing. So basically I was involved in most of these activities, and I knew how much time you have to spend to do, except for the psychologist and for the board. I was not on the board, never, and I will not be, currently. And of course, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know how it takes. But she told me, for example, how she works, and I learned how much time she spends on it.
The reason why I asked, because I was thinking, if your program failed, apparently it wasn't carried. And if the rating was done only by you, maybe others were thinking, because I see a difference, the board gets 300 points, and compared to a local secretary, well, I think that's a big difference, but that's a personal opinion by me. So maybe, because I think the system could work if you make sure that within total Mensa Serbia, you get the idea carried and also the rating carried. More balanced out.
Yes, I
Everybody
understand what
agrees on
you
it.
want to say, but the problem is that if you discuss any kind of issue in Mensa, you have thousands of different opinions and will never get to an agreement. So there must be somebody who cuts. So we did this. We put this table in front of the executive and the managing board, because these were the people who do most of the work, and they agreed that this is okay. However,
You can carry it a bit further to local secretaries and important committee members. So
yeah, they were all involved in the discussion before we finally
carry the system.
Yeah, I understand.
Could this also backfire in the sense that, well, if we're going out here, I might be tempted to carry that glass outside because I want to help clean up. But wait a minute, I'm not getting any points for it, so well, let the standard volunteers do it because they're getting points for it. They're getting paid for it.
You know what? I don't know what is your experience, but my experience is I'm mostly the team leader of the organizational team, whatever, and I do the cleaning. It's always like that because I have a personal feeling of responsibility for the event.
Okay.
While the others, if you don't tell them, you, please, do the cleaning after the meeting, they won't. So this is something that our members at least miss. I don't know whether it's your...
that you might be creating a new threshold for people to do like little activities, and also might be creating an unintended divide within the organization. Just pointing out a certain risk that might be there. I don't know how it works.
Come to one of our events, you'll learn. And I will use this opportunity to tell you that we have over the summer gathering in Belgrade, which is in connection with Belgrade Beer Fest, which is mostly interesting to the Mensa members, please. And we have always, that is for the weekends from 17 to 19 of August. I know that at the same time with the Emma in Stockholm, but somebody may be interested to come and we will be sending in information. We have always on Friday some kind of lecture and of course the evening at the beer fest with the music and the beer. And then also on Saturday we have kind of touristic visits, visit to the institutions, visit to some museums. Every year is different as a program. And of course in the evening we have beer fest. And on Sundays we have a famous grill on our touristic resorts on the lake on River Sava. So we have grill and we have some sports games and we have some visits to the exhibitions which are on that lake on the resort. And that's the program basically of our gathering. And then there will be one on the Lake Palić, which is very close to Hungary, on the north part of Serbia. And it is traditional and it's international. We always have some guests. We have from Denmark, from Slovenia, from Bulgaria, and so on and so on. And it's a very beautiful place to be. So we will be sending the invitation and the program. And I hope at some point this year or one of the next year, we will be hosting you. And as a site coordinator, I promise I'll try to find you somebody to take care of you when you're our guests. Thank you.